The police sirens were screaming down my street, red and blue lights flashing off the old wooden walls of my house. 3 squad cars blocked my driveway, and right behind them came a shiny black SUV. Out stepped Patricia Henderson, the HOA president, pointing her manicured finger at me like I was some kind of criminal. She shouted to the cops, "That's him, that's the squatter." And in that moment, standing on my porch with 6 officers closing in, I felt like my entire world was about to collapse. But to understand how I ended up staring down police cruisers in front of the house my great-grandfather built with his own hands, I need to take you back to the beginning. My name's Jake Thompson. I'm 26, and until a few months ago I was living in a tiny apartment downtown Austin, fixing computers for a living and dreaming about something better. Out of nowhere, an old lawyer who'd worked with my family tracked me down and told me I had inherited a property. Not just any property, my great-grandfather's ranch house built in 1874 sitting on 20 acres. Worth a fortune, but more than that, it was history. It was family. The catch: the ranch was smack in the middle of Willow Creek Estates, one of those neighborhoods where every lawn looks like a golf course and every driveway has a luxury SUV. And they had an HOA run by one woman, Patricia Henderson. The moment I pulled into my driveway in my old pickup truck, neighbors stopped and stared like a stray dog had wandered into their gated paradise. And then Patricia stormed across the street in her white tennis outfit, clipboard under her arm, and demanded to know what I was doing. When I told her this was my house, she grabbed my papers, accused me of faking them, and declared that my shack would be torn down because it violated every HOA rule in the book. At first, I tried to laugh it off. The next morning, though, I woke up to a bright yellow notice taped to my door. Violation. Wrong paint color, wrong truck, wrong flowers, wrong everything. Day after day, more notices piled up. Neighbors whispered, gave me dirty looks, even called the city about noise when I was just pulling weeds in silence. It felt like the whole neighborhood hated me. And I started to wonder, maybe they were right. Maybe my old wooden ranch really didn't belong here. Maybe I should just sell it, pocket the money, move somewhere I wouldn't stick out like a sore thumb. I sat on my porch one night staring at the stars, feeling small and defeated. That's when I heard a tiny voice. "Mister, are you okay?" I looked down and saw a little girl, 7 years old. Curly red hair, freckles holding out a bouquet of dandelions. "I'm Emma," she said shyly. "I think your house looks like a fairy tale." That simple kindness hit me harder than any violation notice ever could. If a kid could see beauty in this place, maybe I wasn't crazy for wanting to stay. Emma told me her mom hated the HOA too, that nobody stood up to Patricia, and that's when the idea hit me. I'd been defending myself. But what if I went on the offense? What if I didn't just fight to stay, but fought to change the whole system? I dug through the HOA bylaws and found a loophole. Any property owner could join. Any member could run for president. And with a petition signed by just 25% of residents, you could force an emergency election. So that's what I did. I started knocking on doors. Some slammed in my face. Some laughed. But then Sarah Emma's mom signed. Then Mr. Chen, an elderly neighbor who'd been bullied by Patricia for years, signed too. One by one, I gathered enough signatures. When I marched into the HOA office and filed that petition, Patricia lost it. She called me a fraud, threatened me on the phone, told me I had no idea who I was messing with. And maybe she was right, because 2 weeks later, she made her boldest move yet. One morning, police cars filled my driveway. Patricia pointed at me screaming that I was squatting illegally. My heart pounded as the officers approached. But when I handed over my inheritance papers, the lead officer studied them carefully, then nodded. "Looks legitimate. This is your property, sir." Patricia turned red, sputtering about aesthetic violations and community standards, but the cops drove away unimpressed. That was the first time I saw fear in her eyes. Still, the harassment didn't stop. She had lawyers serve me with a lawsuit, $500,000 in damages. My hands shook as I read it. I almost gave up right then. I thought maybe I should just walk away, cut my losses. But then I remembered Emma's words. Different isn't bad. And I remembered my grandfather's voice in my head. Doing the right thing is never easy. So I kept fighting. When Patricia tried to hide my house behind a massive 8-foot fence, neighbors rebelled. Emma suggested planting flowers and painting murals on my side, and soon the whole street joined in. What was meant as an ugly wall became the most beautiful piece of community art anyone had ever seen. For the first time, I wasn't the outsider, I was part of something bigger. Election day came and the room was packed. Ballots were counted out loud. Patricia sat stiff on one side, I sat shaking on the other. At first, the votes were close. Then they shifted. Thompson. 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 With each ballot, my lead grew and Patricia's face twisted tighter. Finally, the last vote was read. I had won nearly 2-1. She exploded, shouting that it was fraud, that I'd regret this, that I was too young, too stupid, too naive. But none of it mattered. For the first time in 10 years, she wasn't in control. That should have been the end of it. But bullies don't go down easy. That night, as I walked out of the election hall, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number: "Congrats on your win. Check your house when you get home." My stomach dropped. I sped back to my street and froze. Flames were pouring out of my kitchen windows. Black smoke billowed into the night sky. My great-grandfather's house, the home my family had kept alive for 150 years, was on fire. I tried to run in screaming. "That's my home," but a firefighter grabbed me, yelling that it wasn't safe. I stood helpless on the sidewalk, watching generations of history turn to ash. Neighbors gathered, some crying, some furious. And I knew this wasn't an accident. Patricia had promised I'd regret this, and now she'd proven she'd do anything to make it true. The next morning, city inspectors showed up with paperwork. My house was condemned, scheduled for demolition in 48 hours. It was too fast, too convenient. But then Janet, the HOA secretary, came forward. She told me she'd overheard Patricia on the phone saying the fire was the perfect excuse to finally get rid of me. Janet was terrified, but she was tired of being Patricia's puppet. With her testimony and the fire investigators' evidence, a melted gas can with possible fingerprints, I finally had enough to expose Patricia. I called a protest. By dawn the next day, over 200 people filled my street, neighbors and strangers alike, holding signs and chanting to save my house. News cameras swarmed. And right on cue, Patricia arrived in her black SUV, heels clicking, clipboard in hand, ready to bark orders. But this time the crowd didn't scatter, they stared, and the reporters shoved microphones in her face. "Mrs. Henderson, Jake Thompson says his house fire was arson and he believes you're responsible. Do you have a comment?" For the first time she looked rattled. Her face went pale, then red. She stammered that it was all lies, that the neighborhood had been perfect before I came along. She even admitted in her rage that she'd called City Hall to push the demolition order through. That was it, the slip everyone needed to hear. The fire investigator stepped forward, holding up the evidence bag with the melted gas can. And then Officer Martinez read her rights. Patricia Henderson, the self-proclaimed queen of Willow Creek Estates, was handcuffed in front of 200 witnesses and shoved into the back of a squad car. The crowd erupted, cheering, clapping, hugging each other. And me, I just stood there on my porch steps, smoke still curling from the ruins behind me, heart pounding in my chest. I had taken back my home, my dignity, and the community Patricia had tried to strangle with fear. And as the police car pulled away, one thought cut through the noise in my head like lightning. Bullies only win if you let them.